Soho, London. The clubs are emptying out. Music is still thumping from inside. People are laughing, taking photos, living their best lives, or so they think. Then, without warning, tires screech. A black Mercedes lurches forward into a crowd of people. Bodies scatter. A woman goes down. She's dragged across the pavement, slammed into a metal bike rack, and pinned underneath the car. People are screaming. Security is running. And in the middle of all that chaos, the driver. She gets out, looks around, and does something that will shock you to your core. This wasn't a random accident. This wasn't road rage between strangers. The two women at the center of this story knew each other. They followed each other online. They moved in the same circles. And somewhere between the Instagram posts, the luxury vacations, and the glamorous club nights, something went very, very wrong. One woman is now dead. The other is sitting in a jail cell facing a murder charge. And when you hear the 5 disturbing details surrounding this case, you'll understand exactly why the whole world is talking about it. Stay with me. Because detail number 5. Nobody saw that coming. So who are these two women, and how did they end up on the same street at 4:30 in the morning? Let's start with Klaudia Zakrzewska. Klaudia was 32 years old. Born in Poland, she built her life in Essex, England, and turned herself into a full-blown social media star. On Instagram and TikTok, she went by the name Klaudia Glam, and that name said everything. Her page was a highlight reel of designer outfits, 5-star holidays, and nights out that most people only dream about. She had 275,000 followers who tuned in just to watch her live the life they wished they had. By every measure, Klaudia was winning. Now meet Gabrielle Carrington. Gabrielle was 29 years old, based in Manchester. But she wasn't new to the spotlight. Back in 2013, she appeared on the British TV show X Factor, one of the biggest talent competitions in the world. She performed in the live finals as part of a girl group called Miss Dynamics. After the show, she pivoted to social media and built a following of 368,000 on Instagram under the handle Riel UK. Her content: luxury fashion, exotic trips, exclusive parties, a glamorous life on full display. Here's where it gets interesting. Look at both of their pages side by side, and you'd almost think they were the same person. Same aesthetic. Same audience. Same dream. Two women, building the exact same brand, in the exact same space. And in the influencer world, that kind of overlap doesn't always stay friendly. Before we get into the details, drop a comment below. Have you ever seen a social media feud spill into real life? And where in the world are you watching from today? I read every single comment. Now, to understand what happened on that street in Soho, you have to go back. Way back. Because what played out in the early hours of April 19th didn't start with a car. It started with a phone screen. According to reports, the tension between Klaudia and Gabrielle began with something that, on the surface, sounds completely harmless: an unfollow. That's it. One click. One button. Klaudia reportedly unfollowed Gabrielle on Instagram. And in the real world, that means nothing. But in the influencer world, an unfollow is a statement. It's a message. It says, I don't want to be associated with you anymore. And for two women who built their entire identities online, that small digital act reportedly lit the fuse on months of bad blood. But it didn't stop there. Rumors started circulating online, and let's be clear, these are rumors, not confirmed facts. But multiple sources pointed to the same thing: there may have been a man involved. A romantic rivalry. Two women, moving in the same social circles, allegedly competing for the same person's attention. If true, that would take this from a professional rivalry to something far more personal. Then there's another layer. Some sources online suggested the two had some kind of business arrangement that fell apart. A deal that went wrong, leaving one or both of them feeling burned. Again, not officially confirmed. But when you stack that on top of the unfollow and the romantic rumors, a pattern starts to form. And then there's the most obvious tension of all, the one hiding in plain sight. Both women were fighting for the same audience. Same look. Same content. Same followers. In the influencer world, attention is currency. Every follower one person gains is potentially one another person loses. When two creators occupy the exact same space, competition is inevitable. And when personal feelings get mixed into professional rivalry, that competition can turn ugly fast. By the time April 19th arrived, whatever was between Klaudia and Gabrielle had been building for months. This was not two strangers crossing paths at the wrong moment. These two women had history. They had tension. They had unfinished business. And that night in Soho, it all came to a head. Argyle Street, Soho, central London. Just steps away from the London Palladium, one of the most famous entertainment venues in the world. On any given weekend, this street is alive. People spilling out of clubs, laughing, taking photos, sharing videos, calling cabs. It's loud, it's busy, and it feels completely safe. That was the scene on the night of April 19, 2026. Klaudia Zakrzewska was there with friends, coming out of Inca, a popular nightclub right in the heart of Soho. It was a normal night out. The kind she'd had dozens of times before. The kind she'd probably posted about before. Nothing about that evening should have ended the way it did. But Gabrielle Carrington was also there. At some point in the early hours of the morning, Gabrielle arrived on Argyle Street in her black Mercedes. And almost immediately, things started going wrong. According to prosecutors, Gabrielle got into an altercation with a male outside the club. Words were exchanged. Tensions rose. Club security stepped in and tried to break it up, the way security does every weekend on every busy street in London. For a moment, it looked like it was over. It wasn't. Because instead of walking away, instead of calling it a night and going home, Gabrielle Carrington got back into her car. What happened next was captured on CCTV and described in open court by prosecutors. And it is deeply disturbing. As Gabrielle maneuvered the black Mercedes forward, the car struck Klaudia Zakrzewska, who was standing at the front side of the vehicle. The impact didn't just knock her down. According to prosecutors, Klaudia was dragged forward, her body pulled along the pavement, and then dropped between the car and a metal bike rack on the side of the road. And then the car kept moving. It rolled forward, pulling Klaudia fully underneath the vehicle. At the same time, the Mercedes struck Anu Shaish, a security guard who was standing on the pavement trying to manage the crowd. He went down too. The street erupted. Prosecutors later described the scene as, and these are their words, lots of people shouting. A melee, so to speak. People were screaming. Bystanders were frozen in shock. Others were desperately trying to help. Videos began circulating online almost immediately, graphic, horrifying footage that the Metropolitan Police would later beg the public not to share. Police were called at 4:30 in the morning. They arrived by 5. When they got there, they found multiple people injured on the ground. And in the middle of it all, Klaudia Zakrzewska rushed to hospital in life-threatening condition. Unconscious. Fighting for her life. The street that had been full of laughter just hours before had become a crime scene. And Klaudia would never walk away from it. Now let's get into the 5 disturbing details that make this case unlike anything you've heard before. Each one adds a new layer to a story that is already hard to believe. Detail 1, the unfollow that allegedly ended in murder. Most arguments between influencers stay online. A few harsh words in the comments. A subtweet. A vague Instagram story. And then it fades away. Nobody gets hurt. Nobody ends up in court. This one was different. According to reports, the conflict between Klaudia and Gabrielle started with something as small as an unfollow on Instagram. One click. And from that moment, things between them reportedly got worse, month after month after month. Rumors of a romantic rivalry. Whispers of a business deal gone wrong. Two women competing for the same followers, the same brand deals, the same spotlight. The tension kept building with no resolution in sight. Now here's what makes this detail so disturbing. At no point did anyone step in. There was no conversation that cooled things down. No mutual friend who helped them squash it. Whatever was between them just kept growing, quietly, privately, away from their followers, until it exploded on a public street in the middle of London. Prosecutors are expected to use this months-long history to prove that what happened on April 19 was not an accident. In a murder case, intent is everything. And a feud that stretches back months. That is exactly the kind of evidence that tells a jury, this was personal. An unfollow. That's allegedly where it started. And it allegedly ended with a woman dead on a London street. Detail 2, the breath test, nearly twice the legal limit. Here is a detail that stopped a lot of people in their tracks when it came out in court. When Gabrielle Carrington was arrested at the scene, police administered a breathalyzer test. The result? 61 micrograms of alcohol per 100 milliliters of breath. In the UK, the legal limit is 35 micrograms. That means Gabrielle was nearly twice the legal limit when she got behind the wheel of that Mercedes. To put that into perspective for viewers in the United States, that's the equivalent of a blood alcohol content somewhere between 0.13 and 0.14. The US legal limit is 0.08. She was almost double that too. Now think about what that means in the context of everything else. Gabrielle had been drinking heavily. She got into an argument outside a nightclub. Security tried to break it up. And then, despite being that intoxicated, despite the chaos happening right in front of her, she made the decision to get back into her car and drive. That decision changed everything. Drink driving on its own is a serious criminal charge in the UK. But in this case, it's just one item on a very long list of charges that Gabrielle now faces. And for the prosecution, that breathalyzer result is a powerful piece of evidence. It tells the court exactly what state she was in when she got behind that wheel. Nearly twice the legal limit. And she still drove. Detail 3, the CCTV footage, and why police begged you not to watch it. In most criminal cases, CCTV footage is described in court and shown to a jury. In this case, the footage made it onto the internet, and the Metropolitan Police had to make a public plea for people to stop sharing it. That tells you everything you need to know about what's on it. Prosecutors described the footage in open court. They said it showed Gabrielle Carrington re-entering her vehicle after the altercation outside the club. It showed the Mercedes moving forward. It showed the moment the car made contact with Klaudia. It showed her being dragged. It showed her body dropped between the car and the metal bike rack. And it showed the car continuing to move forward. The Met Police released a public statement asking people not to share the video. Their words, "We also ask that people do not share graphic footage out of respect for Klaudia's loved ones and for those who have been injured. The circulation of such material could also undermine our ongoing criminal investigation and potentially prejudice future court proceedings." Read that again. The police weren't just asking out of sensitivity. They were warning that sharing the video could actually damage the case against the person charged with her murder. That's how serious this footage is. For the prosecution, this video is one of their strongest weapons. A jury will see exactly what happened. No interpretation needed. No conflicting witness accounts. Just the raw, unfiltered truth of what took place on Argyle Street at 4:30 in the morning. Detail 4, the other victims. This wasn't just about Klaudia. When a story like this breaks, the focus naturally falls on the person who lost their life. And rightly so. But one of the most disturbing aspects of this case is how many other people were hurt that night, people who had absolutely nothing to do with any feud. Anush Shaish was a security guard doing his job. He was standing on the pavement, trying to manage the crowd outside the club, when the Mercedes hit him. He suffered life-changing injuries. Not minor injuries. Not injuries he'll recover from in a few weeks. Life-changing. The kind that alter the course of a person's entire future. A 58-year-old man was also struck. He too suffered life-changing injuries. A man who was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, on a busy London street on a Saturday night. A woman named Letitia Armstrong was also caught up in the chaos and sustained injuries. 3 additional victims. 3 more families whose lives were turned upside down. 3 more people who will carry the weight of that night for the rest of their lives, and they had no part in whatever conflict existed between these 2 influencers. That is what makes this detail so hard to sit with. The consequences of that one decision, getting back in that car, reached far beyond the 2 people at the center of this story. Detail 5, the heart gesture, the most chilling moment in court. 2 days after the incident, on April 21, 2026, Gabrielle Carrington appeared at Westminster Magistrates Court. Klaudia Zakrzewska was still alive at that point, barely. She was lying in a hospital bed, in a coma, fighting for her life. Gabrielle stood in the dock facing charges of attempted murder, grievous bodily harm, dangerous driving, and drink driving. The courtroom was packed. Her family and friends were seated in the gallery, watching. And then, Gabrielle looked over at them. And she made a heart shape with her hands. Let that sink in. Not a look of remorse. Not tears. Not her head bowed in the weight of what she was facing. A heart. Directed at her supporters. While the woman prosecutors say she ran down was unconscious in a hospital, hooked up to machines, with her mother sitting at her bedside in what the family described as a living hell. No one can say for certain what was going through Gabrielle's mind in that moment. But that image, a woman charged with attempted murder, making a heart gesture in court, is one that has stayed with everyone who saw it. And it will almost certainly stay with a jury too. After that night on Argyle Street, Klaudia Zakrzewska was rushed to hospital in life-threatening condition. She never woke up. For 6 days, her mother sat at her bedside. 6 days of waiting. 6 days of hoping. 6 days of watching machines keep her daughter alive while doctors delivered news no parent should ever have to hear. The family described it as a living hell. And that is exactly what it was. On April 25, 2026, 6 days after the incident, Klaudia Zakrzewska was pronounced dead. She was 32 years old. The Metropolitan Police released a statement shortly after, saying, "We would like to express our deepest sympathies to Klaudia's family and friends in light of this tragic update. Our thoughts are also with everyone impacted by this incident." Within hours, the charge against Gabrielle Carrington was upgraded. Attempted murder became murder, the most serious charge a person can face in the UK. Klaudia's mother, devastated and determined, launched a GoFundMe to cover funeral costs and legal fees. In her update after Klaudia's death, she wrote, "My precious daughter has gained her wings and is now at peace among the angels. She brought so much love, joy, and light into our lives, and that light will never fade." She also made one thing very clear: she was not going to stop fighting. She was determined to seek justice for her daughter, and every penny raised would go toward making sure Klaudia's memory was honored in court. Now, all eyes turn to the Old Bailey, England's highest criminal trial court, where Gabrielle Carrington is due to appear on May 19th. This will not be a quiet hearing. This is a full murder case, headed for a jury trial, in the most high-profile court in the country. For the prosecution, the path forward is clear. They need to prove intent, known in legal terms as mens rea. They need to show that Gabrielle didn't just accidentally hit Klaudia, but that she meant to cause serious harm or death. The months-long feud gives them motive. The breathalyzer result shows her state of mind. And the CCTV footage shows exactly what her hands did behind that wheel. That is a strong case. But the defense will push back. Their most likely argument: it was an accident. She was drunk, disoriented, and didn't intend to hit anyone. They may try to get the charge reduced from murder down to manslaughter, which carries a significantly lighter sentence. It's a strategy that makes sense on paper. But with eyewitnesses, video evidence, and a documented history between the two women, it's going to be a very hard sell to a jury. I want to know what you think. Do you believe this was intentional, or do you think it was a tragic accident? Drop your verdict in the comments below. I read every single one. Here's the thing about social media that nobody talks about enough. What you see on someone's page is never the full story. The designer outfits, the 5-star hotels, the perfectly lit photos, that's the highlight reel. It's the version of life that gets the likes. But behind those posts, real emotions exist. Real jealousy. Real competition. Real conflict. And sometimes, as this case shows us, real danger. Klaudia and Gabrielle both built brands around living their best lives. Their pages were aspirational. Their followers looked at them and thought, I want that. But while their audiences were double-tapping photos and watching holiday videos, something toxic was reportedly growing between them that no filter could hide. That's the dark side of influencer culture that this case puts on full display. When your entire identity is built around being seen, being admired, and being on top, the arrival of someone who looks just like you, sounds just like you, and wants exactly what you want can feel like a direct threat. And when that feeling is never addressed, never resolved, it doesn't just disappear. It festers. This case is also a wake-up call about nightlife safety. Security was present that night. They intervened. And it still wasn't enough to stop someone from getting back into a car and driving into a crowd. That is a gap that venues, local authorities, and event organizers need to take seriously. And then there's the video. Graphic footage of Klaudia's final moments spread across the internet within hours. Her family had to grieve while strangers shared the worst moment of their lives for views and clicks. That is not okay. Ever. But beyond the influencer world, beyond the legal case, beyond the viral footage, there was a real woman at the center of all of this. Klaudia Zakrzewska. A daughter. A friend. A woman her mother described as having a pure heart. Someone who brought, in her mother's own words, love, joy, and light into every room she walked into. She deserved better than the way her story ended. Klaudia Zakrzewska went out on a Saturday night and never came home. She was 32 years old. Full of life. Full of light. A woman her mother loved more than words can describe. And when she was gone, her mother found the strength to write these words, her love lives on in all of us. Hold on to that. Because as this case moves forward, it's easy to get lost in the charges, the courtroom drama, and the legal arguments. But at the center of all of it is a real person. A daughter. A woman who deserved to grow old. Gabrielle Carrington is due to appear at the Old Bailey on May 19th. That is when this case truly begins. A jury will be selected. Evidence will be presented. The CCTV footage will be shown in court. And the full story of what happened between these two women, every detail, every message, every moment, will finally come to light. This story is far from over. And when it continues, you are going to want to be here for it. If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the update when this case goes to trial. Justice for Klaudia starts with keeping her story alive. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.